your assessment of what happened yesterday, because and even Saturday, in as far as ODM is concerned, one, and the battle for Western Kenya.
Well, you know, for somebody to really understand the media coverage the last couple of days, they need to socialize with the works of Linjiru, because it's a very rare occurrence for all newspapers in Kenya to have the same headline and to have the same theme, and for battle-hardened journalists like you not to follow the conversations around ODM, especially what happened in years. I've seen you struggling looking for it. Yeah, so it means that the media has taken a particular position, or there is a certain force. Like, for instance, the question one may want to ask is, going back to history, you recall at some stage the late Ken Matiba was seen to be a very powerful politician. People had formed the impression that he was going to come to Kenya and rock the boat. But to elevate him and then leave him to drop down and bust his tummy, he received a very solid reception. I recall that is when I was just completing high school, and people said, this is the man who is going to be the president, let the people decide. And a couple of days later, he was very surprised when everything got disintegrated. So one has to ask whether there is a common denominator in all that is happening. But again, taking a divergent view from my sister, it would be very naive for any politician to assume whether this thing has been, whether there is a force behind this or not. It would be very naive for one to assume that Mr. Sifuna is not going to be a factor in Kenyan politics moving forward. Of course, it's going to be a factor. It's going to move the needle. But what he must do is come out and answer 3 questions that people have been asking him. That are, number one, with this national visibility, and it's become part of the national conversation, how will it translate this brand into a political asset that can bring out the votes? Because having visibility, having a national conversation, but without necessarily translating it to a political asset that can bring out the votes is a complete waste of time. Then number 2, he must answer to some suggestions made by his other members from ODM. They're suggesting that there is a powerful force behind him, and they've mentioned the name of retired President Kenyatta as the force behind him. He also needs to offer clarity as to whether or not, in fact, it is his own man, or there is a force behind him. Because you and I know that a pay bill number for Safaricom cannot power an election. You recall Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka attempted to do it. It was a successful failure. Justice Maraga attempted to do it. It was a successful failure. And this one, of course, it cannot power a campaign. And then also a governance question arises that if you want to transform Kenya and you say that Kenya has been led by corruption and you're doing a fundraiser, should there be some sort of a corporate governance structure around it? Should the resources go to your name or do they go to another person? And then it would also be politically naive for anybody, based on what happened on Saturday and Sunday, to write off Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula. If you see anybody saying that the two are spent forces, then they're very naive and they don't understand Kenyan politics. Because those two politicians, just like President Ruto and even Mr. Rigathi Gachagua, they are experienced, they know how to navigate the Kenyan political space. You give them a lemon, they convert it to a lemonade. And a popular saying is that they're like wounded lions. Mm-hmm. When you see a wounded lion, be very, 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 very careful. But I'm not talking about Mr. Rigathi Gachagua, who is somebody that every Kenyan should be worried of. Without effort, he has actually frustrated multi-party democracy within Mount Kenya.
And we'll come to that.
Yeah, anybody wants to speak about that. You know, that is a very critical issue that we cannot afford to ignore at any time.
We'll come to Rigathi Gachagua and what's happening, the larger united alternative government, but focusing on Sifuna and this momentum that now appears to be picking up. Very many people have dismissed him earlier and saying that this is just a wave, it's going. But this wave is growing and it keeps growing. Even Dismas says he expects it to dissipate after a while. But is it anytime soon? It's only a year to the next election.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for having me. And the issue here is actually the past is